TikTok is fun until the chase for a viral moment pushes people too far. Hi, I'm Christopher, and in today's episode, I'm looking at TikTokers mauled by wild animals. From a TikToker who danced in front of a herd of elephants for content to another who baited crocodile water chasing a viral clip. But first, we start with a TikToker who ignored her own rule just to show off a king cobra live on camera. It was Friday, July 5th, 2018, in Tucson, Arizona. The sun was setting over the desert and the air was very hot. Inside a small apartment, the air conditioner was humming. Ashley Marco was 24 years old. She was a person who loved reptiles more than anything else. She had a TikTok account with about 3,400 followers. She spent most of her time filming her snakes. Ashley had 14 snakes in her apartment. She had ball pythons, corn snakes, and a beautiful rainbow boa. She had a tattoo on her arm of a king cobra. She called the tattoo the crown. Most of her snakes were not venomous. This means their bite would hurt, but it would not kill you, because she handled these snakes every day. She became very brave. I want to say something here. 14 snakes, and not one of them had ever seriously hurt her. That kind of track record will make anyone feel untouchable. She would hold them with her bare hands while the camera was recording. For many months, Ashley had a dream. She wanted a king cobra. This was the snake she had always wanted. King cobras are known for being highly reactive and difficult to handle safely. Finally, she found a seller. She paid $1,800 for a young male king cobra. It was about 5 feet long. Ashley was at a pool party with her friends when she got a message. The snake had arrived at her home. She was so excited that she left the party immediately. She drove home fast. She wanted to show the world her new snake. Keeping venomous snakes legally in Arizona can involve permits and local restrictions. The snake was sent to her in a box. It traveled for 18 hours. During this time, the snake was tossed around in a dark box. It was stressed from the travel. In her older videos, Ashley told her fans that you should never touch a venomous snake right after it arrives. She said they need days to calm down. But on this Friday, she did not follow her own advice. Ashley did not have an emergency plan. She only had her phone and her ring light. At 9:42 p.m., she turned on her live stream. About 61 people joined to watch. She was smiling and full of energy. She set up her phone so everyone could see the enclosure. She talked about how happy she was. Then, she opened the shipping container. As soon as the lid opened, the cobra emerged and stood up. It spread its wide hood and stayed in a defensive position. Ashley did not move back. She used a metal hook to move the snake, but she stayed very close. She told her viewers that the snake was just being spicy. In the chat, people started to get worried. They typed messages asking her to be careful. Ashley laughed it off. 61 people watching her laugh off a king cobra strike. I genuinely didn't know whether to be more stunned by the bite or by what she did right after. As she adjusted the hook and shifted her attention toward the live stream comments, the cobra rotated suddenly and struck before she could reposition safely. The cobra bit her on the base of her left thumb. Ashley jumped back and made a sharp sound. She quickly put the snake back in its cage and closed the door. She picked up a towel she had brought from the pool party and wrapped it around her hand. She looked at the camera and tried to act like it was no big deal. She laughed nervously and told the stream she had probably just been tagged. She checked the bite. It was not swelling much. She told her followers it might be a dry bite. A dry bite is when a snake bites, but chooses not to use its venom. Venom is expensive for a snake to make, so they sometimes save it for their food instead of using it for defense. She continued talking to the live stream for several more minutes, trying to stay calm for her audience. At first, Ashley thought she had gotten lucky, but over the next 20 to 30 minutes, she started sweating heavily. Her jaw felt strange. Then her eyelids became difficult to keep open. This type of venom is called a neurotoxin. It attacks the nerves and tells the muscles to stop working. Her words became slow and blurry. She tried to stand up, but her legs felt like jelly. She sat back down heavily. The people watching the live stream knew something was wrong. They urged her to call 911 immediately. Ashley kept insisting she could still breathe. One viewer contacted emergency dispatch in Tucson, but nobody knew her exact apartment number. This caused a delay while responders tried to find her. On the screen, Ashley was struggling for air. It felt like a heavy weight was sitting on her chest. When the paramedics finally arrived, the ring light was still on. They found Ashley on the floor. By the time she reached the hospital, she was in severe respiratory failure. Doctors placed her on a ventilator to help her breathe. Poison control specialists worked to find king cobra anti-venom from exotic animal networks and zoos. Because king cobras are from Asia, the medicine was not easy to find nearby. By the time anti-venom arrangements were underway, the venom had already caused severe respiratory paralysis. Ashley Marco died early the next morning. She was 24 years old. The cause of death was recorded as fatal neurotoxic envenomation. The next day, wildlife authorities came to the apartment. They took the king cobra and the other snakes away. Investigators later examined whether she had the required permits and authorizations to keep the cobra. Footage of the incident was removed to discourage people from doing such stunts. I thought surviving one dangerous animal meant I understood danger. The next creator thought the exact same thing, standing beside a wild elephant in Kenya. It was July 21st, 2018, in a Kenyan wildlife reserve near the Masai Mara. The late afternoon light was warm and orange across the dry grassland, and a large elephant herd was moving through a crossing on the dirt road ahead. The dust they raised drifted slowly in the still air. The safari vehicle had stopped to let them pass. Daniela Ferreira, 21, was a travel content creator from Indonesia who had built her following around dance videos filmed in unusual places: airports, rooftops, waterfalls. She described her content as cinematic and dreamlike, and her audience responded to it. She had been brought to Kenya by a small travel company that wanted scenic safari footage for a sponsored campaign. The company wanted harmless tourism content. Daniela wanted one clip that would be different from anything she had posted before. For months, she had been thinking about filming herself, dancing beside wild elephants in open savanna. She believed it would be peaceful and visually powerful, and exactly the kind of thing her audience would share. The guide briefed the group before they entered the reserve. Stay seated, no loud movements, maintain distance from the herd. Elephants with juveniles can become unpredictable very quickly. Daniela listened and then asked if she could step outside briefly to film a dancing clip beside the herd. The guide refused immediately and repeated the warning. Daniela said she would stay close to the vehicle and it would only take a few seconds. She got out anyway with her phone in selfie mode. The guide said no, but she felt she knew better. I've heard that reasoning before, and it never ends the way the person saying it expects. She started filming close to the vehicle. Then she moved slightly to change the angle. Then again, to get more of the herd in frame. She was looking at her phone screen while she moved, and the distance between her and the vehicle grew without her registering it clearly. Her attention was on the composition, not on what the herd was doing. This is the moment that changed everything. The elephants had been crossing normally. Then, one older female stopped. Her ears spread outward. Several trunks lifted into the air. The younger elephants pulled together tightly in the center of the group. A loud cracking sound came from somewhere in the reserve nearby, the kind of abrupt noise that moves through a herd fast. The tension spread through the crossing formation within seconds. The guide saw it and began shouting for Daniela to return immediately. He started the engine and tried to get her attention. The tourists inside the vehicle had already understood that something had changed. Daniela heard the shouting and saw the shift in the herd, but misread it as a dramatic visual moment and backed slightly further into the roadway to keep the whole herd in frame. The matriarch pivoted. The herd broke from a controlled crossing into a panic-driven surge. Dust rose heavily across the road as multiple elephants pushed through at once. Daniela turned toward the vehicle and realized how far she had drifted from it. The ground was uneven and the dust had reduced visibility. The herd was moving across the road between her and the Jeep. One adult elephant came through the moving herd and struck her with a lateral movement of its head and tusk as it pushed forward with the momentum of the group behind it. The impact was not a targeted attack. The animal was moving with the herd, and she was in its path. The force of a full-grown elephant moving at speed is several tons of weight in motion. She was thrown sideways onto the road. Her phone landed in the dirt nearby and kept recording. The footage showed dust and violent shaking and shouting from the direction of the vehicles. Safari staff secured the remaining tourists and initiated emergency response immediately. Reserve authorities were contacted, and the crossing area was restricted. Responders reached Daniela on the road. The injuries from the impact were severe, including internal trauma and crush injuries to the chest and torso, consistent with being struck by a large animal at force. She was transported by emergency vehicle to the nearest medical facility. Despite medical intervention, Daniela Ferreira died from her injuries. She was 21 years old. The cause of death was recorded as traumatic internal injuries, consistent with impact from a large elephant during a herd movement event. Investigators later reviewed the recovered phone footage and the guide's account. They concluded Daniela had exited the vehicle voluntarily after being refused permission and warned of the risk, that she had drifted farther from the vehicle while focused on filming, and that the herd's panic response had been triggered by an environmental sound rather than any direct provocation. Her body was repatriated to Indonesia following the investigation. Daniela believed the elephants would keep ignoring her. The next creator I found believed a crocodile would stay in the water long enough for one perfect live stream. It was March 18th, 2018, in the Northern Territory of Australia. The afternoon was fading, and the riverbank was quiet in the way that remote places are quiet. Not peaceful exactly, just empty of anything human. The mangroves pressed in close on both sides, and the water between them was dark and gave nothing back. Nguyen Minh, 26, had come from Vietnam with a tripod, 2 camera bags, and a plan that made sense to him in the way plans make sense to people who have never had one go badly wrong. His channel had started by accident. A video of him nearly slipping off a waterfall in Dalat had gone viral without warning. Comments calling him fearless, sponsorship money that helped his parents. The earlier video had taught him the wrong lesson. Surviving danger had started to feel like understanding it. That is the sentence I stopped at. Surviving something and understanding it are not the same thing. That gap is what brought him to that riverbank. But as time went by, the numbers were down. Newer creators were filming things that made his content look cautious by comparison, and his audience had noticed. He had been watching Australian crocodile jump videos for weeks. Clips of saltwater crocodiles launching vertically from the water towards suspended bait. He told his followers he was going to film the closest crocodile jump ever recorded. He believed the gap between what looked dangerous and what actually was dangerous was something he could manage. He arrived at the river system and walked past the designated tourist platforms without stopping. I need to point this out. The safe version of exactly what he wanted was right there. Steel mesh. Proper positioning. He walked past it and kept going for nearly a mile. They were reinforced with steel mesh and positioned well back from the water. He kept going, nearly a mile into a restricted area marked with warning signs, until he found a section of bank that felt right. The ground was mangrove root and mud that stayed wet regardless of the sun. He tested the footing twice before setting up and convinced himself it was stable enough. He positioned his tripod near the waterline and began his live stream. The stream quality dropped repeatedly as the connection weakened near the river system. Viewers later reported the feed freezing several times before anything happened. The water was flat and nothing happened. Chat messages came in, accusing him of staging it. His feet were on a moss-covered root above the mud, and his eyes were on his phone screen. A wildlife ranger named Daniel was on patrol nearby when he spotted movement along the restricted bank. At first, he assumed someone was illegally baiting crocodiles for footage. He saw the tripod and the rope with bait hanging above the water, and as he got closer, he understood the full situation. He left his vehicle and ran toward the bank, shouting for Minh to move back. By the time the crocodile surfaced, there was almost no time left to react. Minh tried to pull back. His foot slipped. He reached for a tree trunk nearby and briefly caught it, but his weight had already moved past the point where catching anything would help. He went forward and down toward the water. The crocodile took him by the torso at the waterline. The bite closed with enough force to fracture several ribs and compress the chest cavity on contact. The animal immediately initiated a death roll, rotating its body violently in the water to destabilize and submerge its target. The rolling motion caused catastrophic internal injuries and drove him below the surface. A saltwater crocodile of that size generates enough rotational force to tear through muscle and bone. He would not have remained conscious for long after the initial bite. Mercer reached the bank within seconds and initially believed Minh had surfaced farther down the bank. He searched the shoreline for several seconds before realizing he was gone. The cause of death was later recorded as traumatic internal injuries and drowning consistent with crocodile attack. The combination of the initial bite, the death roll, and submersion meant survival was not possible after the first seconds of contact. The live stream had kept recording through the freezes and the signal drops. Recordings spread across platforms within hours, and Nguyen Minh was pronounced dead at the scene. His body was recovered the following morning. His camera equipment was still on the bank where he had positioned it. One of the camera batteries was still charging through a portable power bank when investigators recovered the equipment. Investigators concluded he had deliberately entered a restricted area, ignored multiple warning signs, and misjudged how quickly the crocodile could close the gap. The safety margin he believed he had did not exist. After researching Nguyen Min's livestream, I genuinely thought I'd seen the worst decision in this episode. Then I found Rafael Duarte in South Africa. It was October 17, 2018, in the Limpopo region of South Africa. The sun was dropping toward the horizon, and the light over the dry grassland had turned orange and flat. The heat had been sitting over the reserve all day, and even at this hour, it had not let go. The safari vehicle moved slowly along the track, dust rising behind it, the guide keeping the engine low as the Pride came into view beneath a cluster of scattered trees. Rafael Duarte, 23, was a Brazilian TikToker whose online presence had started 2 years earlier with a video filmed in a beach parking lot at night after his girlfriend left him for a local gym instructor. He had paced in front of the camera, ranting about fearlessness and what women respected in men. The video spread because people found it funny. He had not intended to become a minor internet personality, and he had not intended to become a joke, but both things happened at once. He rebuilt his identity around appearing fearless, climbing unfinished buildings, entering abandoned sites, filming dares, but the engagement was dropping, and he needed something that would work. The guide briefed the group before the vehicle entered the reserve. Stay inside at all times. Lions are accustomed to vehicles, but not to people on foot. Do not open doors. Rafael listened the way he listened to most safety instructions. That line told me everything I needed to know about what was coming next. The vehicle stopped around 60 feet from the Pride. 3 lions were resting in the shade, tails flicking slowly, bodies relaxed. Other tourists were filming quietly. Rafael watched through his camera and decided it was not enough. The footage looked calm and still, and there was nothing in it that would restore the attention he had been losing for months. He waited until the guide turned to answer a question from another passenger. He opened the side door quietly, stepped out onto the track, and walked several feet from the vehicle with his action camera running. The lions did not move immediately. Rafael recorded himself standing outside the vehicle, commenting on the tourists inside, comparing himself to survival personalities. The lack of immediate reaction confirmed something in his mind that had been confirmed by every previous stunt that had not ended badly. Nothing had moved yet. He was still in control. This is where things went wrong for me reading this. He read the lion not reacting as proof he was safe. That is the last mistake he made. One lion lifted its head. It fixed its gaze on Rafael and held it there. Several seconds passed. Then, the animal rose slowly from its resting position. Its posture shifted. Its movement became deliberate. It began a slow forward advance through the dry grass, eyes locked on Rafael, closing the distance without hurrying. The guide saw Rafael outside the vehicle and began shouting immediately. He revved the engine and ordered everyone to stay seated. Rafael heard the shouting and saw the lion moving and understood that the situation had changed. He did not know whether moving suddenly would trigger a faster response. He hesitated. The lion did not hesitate. It lowered its body into a stalking posture and kept coming. Rafael started stepping backward toward the vehicle. His feet caught on the uneven ground and scattered brush along the track edge. He was watching the lion, listening to the guide, trying to keep the camera steady, and trying to find his footing all at the same time. He stumbled. The lion accelerated. It covered the remaining distance in seconds. Rafael was beside the safari track when it reached him, too far from the vehicle door to get back inside. The lion took him down with the full force of its weight behind the strike, driving him to the ground. The bite closed on his shoulder and upper chest. The animal's canines punctured deep into muscle and tissue, and one tooth caught along the right side of his neck, creating a laceration across the sternocleidomastoid muscle and partially severing the right external carotid artery. The injury was severe, and bleeding was immediate and heavy, but the left carotid remained intact. Rafael lost consciousness from acute blood loss, but remained alive. The guide and remaining staff initiated emergency response procedures immediately, using the vehicle and noise to push the animal back. Emergency services were contacted, and Rafael was airlifted to a hospital in the nearest city. Surgeons worked to address the vascular damage to his neck and shoulder, attempting to repair the severed artery and control the hemorrhage. The surgical team stabilized the vascular injury, but infection set in rapidly during recovery. Sepsis developed within hours and progressed despite aggressive antibiotic intervention and repeat procedures. Raphael died in hospital 68 hours after the attack. The cause of death was recorded as septic shock, secondary to deep cervical laceration with vascular injury, consistent with a large felid attack. Investigators confirmed he had exited the vehicle voluntarily after receiving clear safety instructions. The last creator I found was Rafael Duarte. Nguyen Min believed he still had enough distance from the water. Rafael believed stepping outside near lions would make the video look braver. It was October 13th, 2018, a campground near Great Smoky Mountains, National Park, Tennessee. A Saturday evening in autumn, the air cold and smelling of damp leaves and wood smoke, flashlight beams moving between tents and RVs across the gravel roads. Ethan Walker was 20 and had lost 3 jobs in less than 3 years. At a hardware store, he had climbed shelving instead of using the rolling ladder and knocked boxes into a customer walkway. At a car wash, he had reversed a customer's truck across wet pavement without a manager present and clipped a metal station. At a barbecue restaurant, he had ignored a warning about a slippery kitchen floor, stacked too many trays, and nearly collided with a coworker carrying hot equipment. Each time he had been told clearly what the rule was. Each time he had decided the rule did not apply to him. Each time something had gone wrong, he had found a reason why it was not really his fault. He had started posting videos online. Most of them went nowhere. Then, during a trip to the Smokies in early 2018, he filmed himself climbing a roadside barrier to approach a wild elk while a park employee shouted at him to move back. The elk ignored him and kept grazing. The video spread. Thousands of strangers called him fearless. Ethan replayed the comments for days. For the first time in a long while, attention felt easy. 3 jobs, 1 viral video, and the comments that followed changed everything about how he saw himself. I wish the elk had reacted differently that day. After that, the content changed. Fences, drop-offs, wildlife. By October 2018, he had around 5,600 followers. Not enough to live on, but enough to dominate his attention. The camping trip that weekend had been planned mostly around content. Friends were asked to repeat reactions for better footage. Hiking clips were filmed multiple times. Rangers had spent the weekend reminding campers to secure food and stay at least 150 feet from bears after several sightings near garbage areas earlier in the week. Black bears are highly motivated by high-calorie rewards. Once a bear associates humans or campgrounds with easy food like trash, they become habituated, losing their natural fear of people, which significantly increases the risk of a defensive or predatory encounter. That Saturday evening, a black bear had been spotted near overflowing trash bins deeper inside the campground. The bear was partly turned away, head lowered towards scattered food and garbage, moving slowly. Ethan pulled out his phone almost automatically. One friend laughed nervously and told him he was actually insane. Another kept filming from further back and told him he was already close enough. Ethan kept walking. He stopped briefly to check his screen and make sure both his face and the bear were visible in the frame. 6 feet from a bear, and he stopped to check his framing. His phone was making the animal look further than it was. Every single thing in that moment was working against him. The bear had not reacted aggressively. To Ethan, that seemed reassuring. He moved closer. The bear shifted slightly beside the bin. Ethan interpreted the movement as proof the animal was used to people. Behind him, a friend told him more seriously to back up now. Ethan hesitated, but did not turn around. Too many people were watching behind him, and he was still recording. The bear lifted its head fully. The laughter behind Ethan stopped. The animal focused directly on him. The distance had closed to roughly 15 feet. The bear charged. It covered the gap instantly and made contact before Ethan could move. The initial strike knocked him off his feet. The bear bit into the right side of his neck and shoulder, the force of the jaw crushing the soft tissue and compromising the carotid artery. It drove him into the ground, pinning him by his chest. He had no time to cover himself and nothing to grab onto. His phone was still recording when it hit the ground beside him. Friends screamed. Someone ran for the ranger station. Someone else shouted and threw something toward the animal. The bear disengaged after several seconds and moved back toward the tree line. Rangers reached the scene within minutes. Ethan was unconscious and in profound hypovolemic shock due to rapid blood loss from the neck wounds. Bystanders had attempted to apply pressure, but the depth of the lacerations and the damage to the major vessels made the bleeding difficult to control in a field setting. Emergency responders initiated CPR and maintained advanced life support measures while transporting him to the nearest clearing for air evacuation. However, the physiological toll of the blood loss, combined with the trauma to the cervical spine during the initial strike, resulted in cardiac arrest during transit. Ethan was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the University Medical Center in Knoxville. The bear was tracked and euthanized the following morning. It was a young male that had been feeding on unsecured campground garbage for several days prior to the incident. The footage from Ethan's phone was reviewed as part of the park's incident report. The video showed him continuing to advance after 2 verbal warnings from his friends, and after the ranger advisory that evening had specifically addressed bear proximity. The park noted that the distance at the point of charge was consistent with a provoked defensive response at close range. No charges were filed. The incident report was added to the park's public safety record. The campground garbage management protocols were reviewed and updated the following season.